I'm on the Rainbow Mountains Upper Crest Ridgeline, and we're looking at Mount Wilson. And to the right, we're looking at the Strip in Las Vegas. Let's take a closer look at Mount Wilson. And then there's a little ridge between Mount Wilson and the Upper Crest Ridgeline. And there now you're looking at the Upper Crest Ridgeline going north. Let's see, let's take a look. We've got Rainbow Mountain over here. And in the distance behind it are the Madre Mountains, the backside of Red Rock Park. In fact, there are the Upper Calico Hills in Red Rock Park. That's the sandstone quarry area, the area where the Calico tanks are. And then looking over this way, you're looking straight at Damsel Peak. Again, looking north on the Upper Crest Ridgeline. And how did I get to this spot? You can see that I'm surrounded by cliffs on at least 2 sides, maybe 3 sides. But there is a decent ridge. This is the ridge I came up. And I started down in Lovell Canyon, right down in that area. That road you're looking at is Saltgrass Road. That unpaved road connects with Lovell Canyon Road. Now I got a little off course. I was going to take the same ridge that I took the last time I came up here. And to access that, you go up Saltgrass Road from Lovell Canyon Road from the campground area through this canyon over this little ridge, and then connect with this ridge in the foreground, and then take that ridge upward to this point. And you can see the route to get there on the mid-upper crest ridgeline access page on LasVegasAreaTrails.com. Now, you know, why do I even want to be on the Rainbow Mountains Upper Crest Ridgeline? Well, it's a very beautiful ridgeline, and it spans the distance, the length of the Rainbow Mountains above the familiar mountains. For example, here's Bridge Mountain. And if you've been to Red Rock Park, maybe you know Bridge Mountain. And then, as I mentioned, Rainbow Mountain. And between Bridge and Rainbow is Juniper Peak, which you can't see from here. And then, very seldom climbed, Mount Wilson. And there's a canyon on either side of Mount Wilson. Gotta watch my handholds here, my stability. But this is First Creek Canyon. And on the other side of Mount Wilson, this is the south side of Mount Wilson. The other side of Mount Wilson is Oak Creek Canyon. Both of those are common access routes to the summit of Mount Wilson. But if you come up to the ridgeline from Lovell Canyon, you can just take that little ridge over to Mount Wilson summit, all pretty much class 3 without dealing with the canyons below, which are, have ledges and brush, boulders. So yeah, that's one of the values of the Upper Crest Ridgeline, is that you can summit all the mountains in the Rainbow Mountains a lot easier than doing from below. And there is Indecision Peak. That's the next one over. So Indecision Peak is the next one south after Mount Wilson, with First Creek Canyon between the two. And then you're looking down on the First Creek Canyon trailhead, or First Creek trailhead. So there is basic idea where we are now. We're going to head south and see what this ridge line is like going south. It's very beautiful views up here, but one thing that you can see immediately without going anywhere is there's Potosi Mountain. And at the base of Potosi Mountain is Highway 160, going between Las Vegas and Pahrump, an access to Death Valley. There's Highway 160. So there you get a pretty good idea where we are. And if you're on the other side of these hills, you'd be seeing the Mount Charleston Wilderness. You'd be seeing Charleston Peak, Griffith Peak, Mummy Mountain, all in the Mount Charleston Wilderness. So there you have it. There's a kind of a summary of where we are. And we have never been on this point before and want to see what it's like to go south. So we'll pick this up as soon as we get on the other side of this tree. This stretch of the Rainbow Mountains Upper Crest Ridgeline just appears to be a bit more challenging than the northern sections, which have established trails. There is no trail that I can see up here, but what we need to do is get around this next high point and then see what things look like after that. We have Indecision Peak here, south of Mount Wilson, and the ridgeline, the peaks pick up after Indecision Peak. You cross what I refer to as a gap, and that gap in the ridgeline, we'll see if it's truly a gap. It sure looked like it from the other side. I made it from Mountain Spring over to Hidden Peak, and Hidden Peak's on the other side of the gap, but there's a gap in the ridgeline between Hidden Peak and Indecision Peak. This point right up here is above Indecision Peak, and that's on the ridgeline. Indecision Peak is one of the peaks that are that branch off from the ridgeline. So anyway, yeah, we're gonna see about crossing this next area, and you can see where the ridgeline does continue. We'll see what that looks like. Here we go. I think it's pretty safe to say that not many people travel the ridgeline up here. So what you're seeing in this video is rare footage of the Rainbow Mountains Upper Crest Ridgeline south from Mount Wilson. Let's see if we can find some kind of pathway. There's no real trail, but maybe there's a kind of route that we can pick out here. Another quick perspective as we move south along the Upper Crest Ridgeline, and there's Rainbow Mountain on the left, Mount Wilson on the right, and then you can see the approach ridge between the Upper Crest Ridgeline and Rainbow Mountain right here. Kind of a saddle. I mean, between the Upper Crest Ridgeline and Mount Wilson. This is the way you would approach Mount Wilson from the Upper Crest Ridgeline. Airplane way below us. Circling above Mount Wilson now, around the other side. Las Vegas Strip. And this first challenging passageway on the ridgeline. We'll see if we can go to the right or west of this outcrop ahead. Here's a better view of Indecision Peak. And you can see the high formation on the ridgeline above Indecision Peak. Then looking around, First Creek Canyon below us. Another perspective of Mount Wilson, Rainbow Mountain, and the ridgeline heading north. And then panning over to Lovell Canyon area. Potosi Mountain, back to that high rock formation above Indecision Peak. Okay, we're closing in on that high point. I may or may not go all the way up. There's Indecision Peak just to the left. Another perspective of Mount Wilson, First Creek Canyon below, Las Vegas Strip in the distance. And then continuing the circuit. Sorry about that. I'm just trying not to go off the edge of this while I'm making this circle. Rainbow Mountain. There's a good shot of the upper Crest Ridgeline. And then in the distance, you can see the Mount Charleston Wilderness, Griffith Peak on the right to Charleston Peak, I guess more behind Charleston Peak, Griffith Peak. Yeah, this is just a perspective of the area that very few people have seen. Then that formation, kind of a flat top there, bluff, reddish. That's where I started. And then continuing around, circles and heights make me dizzy. so I may be a little dizzy trying not to fall. And you're looking at the hidden peak area now, which begins the southern portion of the ridgeline that goes past Hidden Peak, Black Velvet Peak, Windy Peak, Hollow Rock Peak and South Peak, and then down to Mountain Springs, the town, which is down in right there, right at the base of Potosi Mountain. And now the challenge, navigating around the right or west side of this next formation to continue on the ridgeline. And it looks like, what I found here is you couldn't call it a trail, but it is definitely, I'll show you when I'm down there again, but it is definitely somewhat of a level pathway, like somebody's used it before, either people or animals. Yeah, it may be a figment of my imagination, but doesn't that look like it could be a path that was maybe used once a year for the last few years? I don't know, but it does look like somewhat of a path. Maybe there's one down there too, or maybe they're all just my imagination. So anyway, yeah, let's just continue along here and make our way along whatever looks like it could be a pathway. Another 360. This time we're on top of that formation we were looking at a moment ago. Rainbow Mountain. La Madre Mountains in the background. Mount Wilson. Another perspective of First Creek Canyon. Wow, that looks like a real chute down there. And then here's that formation that we're on. And Indecision Peak's right on the other side of this. But here's a really good view of Hidden Peak and Monument Peak. And you can even see, yeah, you can see Windy Peak. Let's take a look at this. Hidden Peak and Monument Peak. Hidden Peak on the right, Monument on the left. There's Hidden Peak, Monument Peak. And then Black Velvet Peak. And here's Windy Peak. And you're looking across the gap in the ridgeline. So somehow I need to navigate downward here. And then I don't know how far I'm going to go before I am in danger of running out of light. It's been slow going up here. But at some point, I'm going to turn back toward Lovell Canyon. And there's the, at the right side of that bluff in the distance, that's where we started. So that's the start point that we need to return to. So you can see there are some interesting canyons to navigate down here. And then even getting down to the canyons is going to be somewhat of a challenge. So let's just see what we can do here and see if we can get down, at least to this ridge in the foreground. Then there are downward ridges that go in the direction we want to go. So there you have it, figuring out what to do up here on the Rainbow Mountains Upper Crest Ridgeline, looking south. Here's what I mean. It almost looks like a little trail, but you can't count on it. And we are now on the south side of that rock formation we were looking at earlier that's above Indecision Peak. They're looking down into Lovell Canyon, panning around. Mount Charleston Wilderness. And then looking back at that high point, back north, and the best advice I have for navigating that is to um, be kind of low in this bowl here, and then navigate high as you reach that the edge of that bluff on your or ridge right in the center, and navigate around that ridge very high, and then head low on the other side for a little bit before you again take up the middle of the upper Crest Ridgeline. And it's pretty much, you basically need to pick your way along. I try to keep to what looks like a leveled area, like it maybe was historically a trail, or maybe someone passes here once every year. I don't know. Makes it level. Maybe I'm helping that too. Who knows? Anyway, yeah, let's continue on, and we should get a good view of Hidden Peak once we get to this ridge up ahead. What do you know? There's Hidden Peak, a lot closer, and here's another ridge. We might be able to angle over to this ridge and take it around and down to the base of Hidden Peak. We don't know, but let's go ahead and give that a try and see what happens. And then there's Potosi Mountain. Hidden Peak, Monument Peak. The ridge we're going to attempt as we work our way in that direction. And we'll probably end up descending right about down here. And what we want to do is make our way back to the start point in Lovell Canyon once we reach Hidden Peak. So we'll see how that goes. Don't know how the terrain is between here and there, but we're going to find out. And then looking over toward the Mount Charleston Wilderness. And then back up to that high point above Indecision Peak. So let's see if we can catch the ridge over here and navigate this ridge a little bit further. Okay, now we've completely circled that ridge, or that rock formation. We're looking back on Rainbow Mountain in the center there. And Mount Wilson. And you see First Creek Canyon below Mount Wilson. And also, you can see the ridge, the saddle that connects the Upper Crest Ridgeline with Mount Wilson. And then over to Las Vegas and the Strip. So what we're going to do now is, oh, here's a cool formation. Look at this. Little natural arch. Middle of nowhere. And then looking in this direction, south, you can see much better view of the Hidden Peak area. In fact, here you've got Indecision Peak. Not sure what this is. Maybe it's part of Indecision Peak. Looks pretty much like that. And then you've got the Hidden Peak, Monument Peak area. And then over to, let's see, I think we can see all the way over to Windy Peak. And on this side of Windy Peak would be Black Velvet Peak. So there you see the southern peaks of the Rainbow Mountains. And then for an idea how we're going to descend and get off this ridge. It looks like there's a descent ridge right here. It goes down, and we'll just have to see where that connects with Lovell Canyon. That'll be a surprise. Well, it looks like this ridge right here is the ticket to Indecision Peak. So at some point we'll see about descending to Indecision Peak. We know it's on the south side, the approach. In the meantime, yeah, we're going to head right down this ridge in the center and then see if we can connect back into Lovell Canyon. That squarish bluff in the distance, we are parked on the right side of that bluff. So, so that should be interesting getting there before dark. Okay, you're looking at the final gap in the Rainbow Mountains Upper Crest Ridgeline. And across this gap is Hidden Peak. Town of Blue Diamond below. Indecision Peak. Mount Wilson. Now a ways to the north. And then looking at the saddle approach to Indecision Peak. We were up there just a moment ago. And you can take this saddle right down and then up over that high point and then across, and you have summited Indecision Peak, class 3, 2 and 3 climbing only. So where we are, you can see we've got some drop-offs here. So beautiful though. Look at all that Jurassic rock. Jurassic sandstone. So what we're going to do, we're going to head down this ridge and then head downward back into Lovell Canyon. And we'll just see how that works out. But that our end point is on the right side, the base of the right side of that plateau bluff. And then just another look around. Very beautiful up here. And I don't think many people get here, so this may be the only video you're seeing from this point in this wilderness. Okay, onward. And if you look carefully, you might be able to pick out a trail down there in the canyon. That would be my target. Help us to get through that area without having to weave around through the brush. We'll see how that works. Here's a great shot right down to the town of Blue Diamond, and we've got Hidden Peak on your right, Indecision Peak on your left. And here's our exit canyon. Let's go find a trail down here and head back. I think I'm all wildernessed out at this point, looking for just a nice trail. And here's closing the gap between where we are and Hidden Peak, which is where the south portion of the Upper Ridgeline Trail ends. And so you could picture going down this ridge and then navigating over to this area, and you're on the south Upper Crest Ridge Trail, and you're at Hidden Peak. And as a matter of fact, that peninsula right in the center is pretty much where the trail ends, and it takes a left and heads down to Hidden Peak. But I've stood on that spot, so it's basically just a matter of getting from here to there to close the final gap, and we'll do that, but not today. Okay, here we are. We have managed to find a wash. Seems fairly well open. Washes are not my favorite because of all the boulders and the brush, but just maybe this will take us down to an open area and to a trail. So let's just see where this leads. Well, here we are, weaving our way through this forest. It's like a huge maze. I know I'm headed in the right direction, but wow, what a circuitous, complicated route this is, trying to avoid sharp objects. and basically heading downward toward a wash, which I hope is going to be much wider than the last one and potentially lead us easily out of this little forest. So let's just see what happens. Well, at least as we descend, the washes are getting wider and more wide open. So less obstacles, not no obstacles, but less obstacles. And we continue to make our way to our start point. Time to check in again. This wash is really nice. Hopefully it will empty out in a nice place. I'm just about to clear a ridge that will reveal how far away my start point is. So yeah, moving along, looking good. Well, after about 1,000 bends in this wash, this is a good sign. Wilderness boundary, which means that we are out of the wilderness and continuing to descend this endless wash. It's a beautiful day. Nice breeze, couldn't be better. Well, there's my bluff. Straight ahead. And so now it's cross country. We're out of the wash and we're just going to make our way straight over to the right side of that bluff where the beast is parked. So onward. And now through the thick grass, we'll test my rattlesnake theory, which is that they are more afraid of me than I am of them. And when they hear me coming, they take off. What do you think? But wow, look at this field. This is just amazing. Lovell Canyon. So beautiful. Well, we're through the tall grass section. Now we are into the sagebrush. What a beautiful canyon. And a lot of it's in bloom this last weekend in May. So as you can see, we're closing in on the right end of that bluff ahead. A lot of weaving through the bushes. I can see why cowboys wore chaps, which were the leather leg protectors. I'm getting pretty well slashed up, but still, this is so peaceful and so beautiful. And you can see just a little bit of Potosi Mountain. Who could imagine all this would grow in an environment that is desert dry? Okay, we're on roads now. First time I've been out of the wilderness. There's the bluff, and we're heading down to the parking area. You're looking at Potosi Mountain in the center. And we turn it around. And here is the very place where we summited the Rainbow Mountains Upper Crest Ridgeline. So it's been a pretty big circuit, but amazing immersion in the wilderness on a spring day where everything's alive. Okay, running it in now. And we're back at the beast. Rainbow Mountains Upper Crest Ridgeline, from Mount Wilson to the Hidden Peak area. What an amazing day.